If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by portrait photography, or just at a loss of what to focus on to take you to that next level, then come hang with me. I help guide portrait photographers just like you to stay clear and sharp in camera and with your goals. I'm your host, photographer, educator, and weirdly positive mama for Emily Supio. And this is the Stay Focused Podcast. Photography advice to help you stay focused. Hey there, it's Emily Supio, and thank you so much for pressing play on today's episode of the Stay Focused Podcast. Now, if you are newer to photography, but you have even for a second thought, boy, it would be cool to make a little extra money with photography, or it would be cool to have a photography business, maybe part-time or full-time, this episode is for you. Today, I'm going to be talking with Rachel Traxler, who has an amazing story about how and why she left her day job to transition into a full-time premium wedding photographer. The things she's going to share with us today are pretty amazing and hopefully pretty inspiring to you if you would like to make that leap someday. But not only that, Rachel is all kinds of amazing when it comes to her Instagram and social media, but she shares why social media isn't really the key to everything and why you shouldn't be putting all your eggs into the social media basket. It's pretty interesting, her take on this. And then finally, she gets into her unique perspective on client experience. Because once you can take a good picture and once you can even find one client, once you get them there and you've got your camera, it's like, now what? How do you make it amazing for them? And she's going to share with you just that. Now, just kind of giving that introduction about Rachel got me thinking a little bit about before I was a full-time family portrait photographer. I used to be an elementary school teacher, and then after that, I was a college professor. And some of the classes that I taught were at night. One of them in particular was about a 45-minute drive away. And I think the class might have started at like 7 or 8 at night because I remember it was really dark when I had to drive. And I can remember driving to this class and thinking in real detail how cool it would be to not have to do these drives at random times anymore. And I would picture in my head just being a full-time photographer. And I would think about how that would feel, and I would think about how that would look like. But the thing was, at that time, I just didn't know how to get there. So if that's you right now, if you are working a part-time or full-time job, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom right now, but you're thinking that you would like to create a business one day, hopefully we get you inspired on today's episode of the show. What I always like to remind you is that everyone starts somewhere. And while we do have some really exciting guests on the show, their part in their photography journey is probably not where you are at right now. So if you are a beginner in photography, it all starts with really understanding your camera in a simple way. Once you do that, the possibilities are endless. So if you are still a little confused with manual mode or not getting sharp photos all the time, then I invite you to join me in my 1-hour masterclass, the 4-step framework to confidently shooting beautiful portraits. You can register for that today by going to cozyclicks.com/framework. You'll also find that direct link in the show notes or in the description of any podcast platform you're listening from right now. All right, you guys, we have Rachel Traxler on the show today. A little tongue-tied already because you are all kinds of wonderful, Rachel. You are just a force to be reckoned with in the photography world. Can you introduce yourself to our audience and just tell them briefly about who you are and what it is that you do?
Oh my goodness. Well, what an intro. I appreciate that. I don't deserve that, but I appreciate you. But yes, my name is Rachel Traxler, a little bit of a tongue twister sometimes. I'm a wedding photographer. I'm based in Wisconsin. I do traveling stuff too. But now that I have my little daughter and a little baby on the way, due like any second now. I like to be more at home too. So Wisconsin, but I'm also a photography business coach as well. I've been photographing weddings for 10 years and have been, in the industry for over a decade. And I just love it so much. And I just love being able to now serve other photographers, almost like helping craft like the next generation of photographers. It's really, really fun. But yeah, that's
Yeah, it is fun. I love educating photographers too. And Rachel, I don't know if you know, but most of our audience here on the Stay Focused podcast are photographers that are just starting out. So I think a lot of times when newer photographers hear people like you or some of the bigger name photographers out there, it's like their eyes get sparkly and there's so much, excitement around that. But what I want to talk to you about first is so it wasn't like just one day you woke up and you're like, oh, I'm gonna, travel around and shoot weddings and be an educator and, craft the world. It was, I know it wasn't like that. You know, it wasn't like that. It takes time. So I want you to think back to Rachel, whatever day it was that you opened up your first camera. What was your inspiration? Why did you even want to start learning photography in the first place?
Oh, Emily, that's like the such a good point because I think especially with social media, people kind of forget of like
Mhm.
everybody's journeys to get there. It's not overnight. It doesn't just happen like that's a lot of hard work, a lot of effort. I can talk to into too, but I'm just like a huge believer in you have to go out and make things happen for yourself. Opportunities very, very rarely just fall in your lap. And so that's something I had to learn the hard way too of like okay, if I want these things to happen, I have to actually go out and make them happen. So I think that's a good little reminder. But to back it up to kind of answer your question too, it's so funny because I've always, I've loved photography. I think everybody's kind of starts off that way saying like, "Oh yeah, I loved picked up my first camera and I fell in love." That's like the typical story of what happens. But yes, I loved taking, photos and photographs and all that stuff. I was always that girl with the camera too of like my friend group and stuff. But I actually never wanted to become a full-time photographer. I always wanted to keep it part-time. I actually worked in the medical field beforehand. So I worked in oncology in the cancer center at Mayo Clinic. And so I was working with terminally ill patients, cancer patients. And I really loved working in the medical field. And so much so I wanted to keep that job and only maybe do photography part time. But, something with that job, and I'm an Enneagram type 7. So I was like confined in like a windowless office, like following protocol, like medical protocol. And I just like, man, this job is just kind of like taking the sucking the life out of me, taking everything out. And my photography kind of started picking up. And my husband was like, you should just go for it. Like you should just do photography. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do. But he really inspired me and motivated me to do that. And I just felt this extreme calling of that maybe I should do this. So I just quit my job in the medical field and just went for it. And it's funny because even when I did go full time, it's not like I built up a plan to say, okay, I'm going to wait till I go full time till I like match my salary or if I book this amount of weddings. Because in fact, I wanted to keep it part time, that I said no to over half of the things that I wanted that year. And so I went into full time being like, I could have really had a full time year, but I said no to all of it. So I'm really just going in and like just taking the leap. And I just did it and I made it work. I didn't have a plan B and I just haven't looked back.
That is awesome and so inspirational for any of you that are out there right now listening and thinking, and maybe you're working in your cubicle and you're all confined like Rachel was, and you're thinking, boy, it would be cool to do a little more, or even just if you wanted to be part-time or make that side money like you thought. I think a lot of people start that way.
Mhm.
Like you can do it, you can make it happen. But I want to be really clear, and I love that you were really clear too, Rachel, and you're like, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like what you see on social media where you see it, these profiles and these people that look like where did they come from? They just have it all in their lap. Like they've probably been at it for a really long time. Like I think you said 10 years now you've
Mhm.
been at this, Rachel. So
Yeah.
I always like to bring that back into these episodes for all of you, just so you remember that and you don't doubt yourself or feel down or think I'm not good enough or I'm never going to do it. It does take time from the time you first get that camera. So I love that you guys are listening and you like photography and you're ready to learn, and you're listening now so that you can build on those goals. So Rachel, you talked just a little bit about social media. You were saying that, it's not everything you see on social media, and your social media is all kinds of wonderful. I love your Instagram profile. It's just beautiful pictures, her beautiful little family. You guys have to check it out on Instagram. But what you were saying to me earlier was that social media isn't everything. And in the beginning, that was a big mistake that you made. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. And so obviously social media has changed so much from when, I started, and things were a lot easier on social media when I started. So it was a lot easier to be like, oh, I just can post a picture on just like just a single photo,
Yeah.
just a single photo on Instagram and get 5 inquiries that day. Like things were so different back then than they are now. And now I'm just like, I'm a firm believer in that, you shouldn't rely on social media for all of your marketing strategy. So like now my beliefs on that have shifted even more so, just because I think a lot of people look at and think of social media as they need to put all their marketing eggs into one basket, and that's social media. And then you know what? That's such a recipe for feeling burnout and feeling imposter syndrome and feeling like feeling failure, because it's very unrealistic to be super consistent all the time. Some people are really good at it, and I give them props to that. But for me, with my lifestyle and where I'm at, I'm like, I don't know that I can always be showing up in real time. I don't know that I can always have this constant strategy and all this stuff. And so having other marketing strategies to help with like lead generation too, I think is really helpful, so that you don't set yourself up for feeling, failure on if you're not consistent on social media or anything like that too. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to say and to mention that I think social media is a beautiful and powerful tool that's been just like the biggest blessing in my business too. And so I think I approach it with that mindset, rather than feeling like I have to be showing up and I have to be posting all these things. It's like I kind of view it as a huge blessing to be able to connect with people and like to be able to showcase my work and who I am and connect with people. I think that's a good mindset to have. Otherwise, it's so easy to just fall victim to like the algorithm and thinking that it's out to get you, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. So I think that's something to keep in mind too, especially as you're getting started and you're so focused on like growing and, you want all this visibility but how do you get it and stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And just remembering that, remembering that mindset and that social media isn't everything. And then going back to what you said before on it's not what you see on social media. Doesn't really mean anything, right? It comes a lot in our own minds, right? Like what we see, and we create this picture of what's going on. So yes, use social media, you guys, but don't put all your eggs in one basket in that, and just think of that as a great tool. So I love that. Love everything you're saying today, Rachel. So I know now you are like premium wedding photographer, totally booked. And it did take time to get there. And I want to keep reiterating that to everybody that's listening. But you are really good at creating and crafting a really great client experience. Okay. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize at first. Like they learn the camera and they're struggling to get clients, and then they finally get clients. And then it's like, okay, now what? So can you elaborate? Can you help us out by, walking us through how do we make a client experience that someone is going to remember and want to refer us out to and want to rebook us again and again and again?
Yes. And I love this because I think it's something that people forget about. Like you said, they just think about taking pretty pictures and having, showing up on social media and all of that stuff. And I also think that a lot of people think client experience is just like, oh, well, I have a welcome guide. You know what I mean? Like that's a good, I have guides that I send to my clients. That's a good experience. And there's so much more that you can have a killer client experience without having any guides. Like you can, obviously that helps elevate it, but there's, what I like to say is there's two different types of like client experience, I guess, per se. There's client experience, which is every single thing you do in your business that you don't even realize is client experience. And then there's client connection, which is like how you're actually creating that connection with your clients and how you're actually delivering that in-person experience to them, how you're offboarding them and how you're leaving the experience with them, everything. So these things fall into like everything that you do in your business too. But if you are wanting to, because like, yes, like you said, Emily, like I had years that I had 30 plus weddings booked and I was so, busy and booked and all that stuff, which was great. But then I realized, okay, like I want to cut back on that a little bit. I still want to make this amount of money or make more amount of money too. Not that it's all about money, but like, how can I work less too and get a little more time back? Cause I think to go back to like the reason why I started, it's because I didn't want to work every weekend, is why I didn't want to become a full-time photographer. So I'm really blessed and thankful that I've been able to take what I still love to do, but be able to do it in a way that I wanted to do it by taking on less weddings to create more of a premium client and higher end client. So being able to shift that into being able to charge more premium prices so I can take on less weddings and still make more money than I would be able to if I was still booking in the 2K range, or you know what I mean, like 1 to 3 range and stuff like that. It's like working your way up. And I think too, when it comes to attracting like premium clients, I have like this premium client pyramid that I like to reference. And so there's like 4 parts to the pyramid that you kind of need to create a premium client. And a lot of that goes into that is like your messaging and your branding and creating a really solid referral system and a really good client experience, like we're kind of talking about, and also creating really good vendor connections too and vendor relationships to help get a referral system going. And what happens when you have a really good client experience is that your clients are going to refer you too, and like word of mouth and all of that stuff too. So there's a lot that kind of goes into creating that premium client. But I would say, because a lot of it goes into like your branding and messaging, something like a big mistake. I've made millions of mistakes. So I'm going to let you in on a little insight on one that really, really I like to share because it's such a shiny object thing, is that people think, oh, I need to get rebranded, or like things aren't working, I need to get rebranded, I need a new website, I need all these things. And um I did that too. I made the same mistake, but what I did was I got branded. I paid for, branding and all that stuff way too early in my business. Before I really knew who I was, before I knew my messaging, before I had a client experience, before I knew the back end of my business, before any of that. So what happened, I was starting to attract clients that weren't really my ideal clients. I was like, gosh, something is wrong, something's missing. And it's because my brand, but the branding I had was beautiful. It just wasn't me. And so I wasn't attracting that. And it also I wasn't attracting the types of clients I wanted. But then what happened is I had to like really dig in deep of my own messaging, my own reason, my own brand promise, the purpose behind what I'm doing, the types of people I want to work with. And I ended up having to get rebranded, shortly after, because I'm like, oh, now I'm figuring it out. So I think that's like a big mistake. And I think a lot of that goes into like figuring out your messaging and your copy. Because also another mistake, I see so many people, photographers, myself included, like I'm not above any of these things because I'm saying them because I did them, is adapting to to verbiage in the industry. Like everybody uses the same verbiage, the same words of like the types of photographers they are, like adventurous photographer, like for the wild and wildly in love, and like I love to capture genuine moments. You see these same verbiage, the same verbiage over and over again. And that's something I love to challenge my students with. We craft your messaging super, super fat, like early on in the process, because it's like, I want you to stand out, and I know you can stand out because every single person is so different. You know what I mean? Like if you and I, Emily, are doing the same thing. So say like we're all photographing weddings, right? We all do it so, so differently, that it's like, what's your unique approaches and your unique methods that you can really craft your messaging around that and portray that. And I think that's something that people forget about, to really dive in deep with that. And so by doing that, that completely sets you apart so that you can attract more of those premium clients and stuff too. But oh my goodness, I could just go off all day. I'm sorry. I'm like rambling.
No, I absolutely love it. And like, I connect with so much of this too, because I thought, that pretty website and making sure my fonts were all the same. And even it to the point where I would go and like find website templates. And I'm like, oh, well, that's what I like that. That's pretty. And then I was taking like pretty much the same words from the template and everything. And it just wasn't me. So I totally get that too. And I think that's super important, that it's not your colors. It's not your font. It's not your logo. It's your words and your beliefs and your message. And I think the reason so many of us go back to, oh, well, let's redesign my logo. Let's get a different logo, or let's pick different fonts, is because that's easier. And because it's a little more creative for us, right? Like, we're creative people. We like to do that, but it becomes busy work, really. Essentially, it's just busy work for us. And we like to do that. But really, what's going to move the needle and what's going to help your business is really crafting the words and the message and something that is unique to you. So I love that. We could chat about this forever, Rachel, because I think we are right there. And I hope that you guys that are listening, I hope this is like sinking in with you, and hopefully it's inspiring you and getting you to start thinking about your own message with your photos. And maybe you're not even a wedding photographer. You guys know I'm not a wedding photographer. And I at one time I thought I needed to be in a business, but maybe that's not you. You've got to think about you and what inspires you, and what makes you happy when you're taking pictures, and what makes you happy when you're thinking about creating your business. So, Rachel, we are both a part of a really cool thing that's happening at the end of February. I'm not exactly sure what day you guys are listening to this episode as it's airing. I know that these episodes live on in history forever and ever. So if you're listening in February, at the end of this month, Rachel and I are both part of the Creative Collaboration. You may have heard it before. I've been part of it before. Lots and lots. I don't even know how many fantastic photographers and educators are part of this to help you guys, but you are contributing one of your courses to this. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Can you tell us what you will be contributing to this, so people get a little excited over what they can learn even more from you?
Oh my goodness. And this bundle, like the collaborative bundle, it like blows my mind.
I know.
That it's because I'm even like, my course alone is triple of what the entire thing is cost. And so it's like, how in the heck, does it's so cool. So the course that I'm having in there, it's called the Inquiry to Income course. And it's basically how to create lead generations for yourself. Once you get those lead generations, it's basically the whole process of taking that lead and converting them into premium clients. So not even just booking them, but like converting them to premium clients, and what that looks like, and just making sure that, it helps you increase your booking rate, and you can really actually land and book those weddings and clients that you want to get. And it's a unique method that I've created myself over a decade. So I know nobody else is teaching the way I do it, because I do it in a very client experience is my jam. So it's in a very like client connection centered approach. And it's phenomenal. And it's helped me book so many just like aligned weddings, and just help with my, conversion rate and stuff like that. Help me even just like grow my team too. So that, because I get booked so fast that now I can like have my associate team take some weddings too. And so it's a really, really awesome course. It's called the Inquiry to Income course. And I'm really excited that it's part of the bundle. Like I said, this bundle is going to be phenomenal. I can't even believe it.
I know. I'm super excited. And like I said, depending on when you're listening, it might not even be open yet. So you guys just check the link that's in the show notes, or wherever if you're listening on iTunes right now, or Spotify or YouTube, wherever you're listening, there will be a link that you can check that out as soon as it is available, and you can check out Rachel's course. I've got a little something in there too. I'll tell you guys about that soon, but a lot of other cool stuff too. So be on the lookout for that. And Rachel, if people that are listening are like, okay, that all sounds cool, but I want to get to know more about you now, today, where can they do that?
Yes. So I always say, like, obviously, like, social media is great. So my Instagram is at Rachel Traxler. Otherwise, my website is racheltraxler.com. I got so many good things on there, so many free resources, all the things. I think my goal is to just kind of help people with like all those resources as much as possible. Like I said, I have my own podcast too. It's called the Gold Biz Podcast, and you can find that on social media and on my website. And so lots of good fun resources for people.
Awesome. And if you didn't catch that, if you didn't write it down quick enough or memorize it in your brain, which I know you probably didn't, but I will have those direct links to her Instagram and website up on the show notes. Or like I said, if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening, all that info is in the description. Wherever you're listening, you just have to click it, go follow Rachel, go send her a DM, tell her that you listened to today's episode. I hope that's okay, Rachel, that I said that.
Absolutely. I always tell people to do that too. So absolutely.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. I truly appreciate you. And like I said, I think you are a force to be reckoned with in the photography industry. So thank you. I appreciate all of your knowledge here today.
Thank you. You were awesome. I really appreciate it.
I so appreciate Rachel being on the show with us today, but even more, I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to invest in learning in yourself and learning a little more about photography and how to reach your bigger photography goals, no matter what those goals might be for you. Now, remember, this month is a double episode week, the whole month of February, gearing up for the launch of the Creative Collaboration that happens once this year. Super exciting with, I don't even know how many photographers and educators in the industry that are coming together to help new photographers just like you. So make sure that you keep your eyes and ears open for more info on the Creative Collaboration. It's happening at the end of the month and definitely something you're not going to want to miss out on. All right, you guys, I will be back all throughout the month. So make sure you've subscribed to the Stay Focused podcast on iTunes so you don't miss any of the episodes that are going to be happening this month. They're going to be good ones, so you don't want to miss out. But until then, here's to staying in focus, in camera, and with your goals. Bye, you guys.